Since the war broke out in 1939, one of the main tasks of the considerably weaker but rapidly expanding Kriegsmarine was to undermine British sea commerce and thus hinder its military industry and economic potential. It is the 21st of March of 1941. The German Naval Command under Grand Admiral Erich Raeder decided to carry out yet another raid on Allied trading lanes. This plan, dubbed Operation Rheinübung, utilizing the Bismarck, the only fully operational capital ship at the time. Grand Admiral Raeder was determined to have his capital ships raiding the Atlantic convoys as soon as possible. The only other serviceable ship with enough endurance for such a mission was the Prinz Eugen, an Admiral Hipper-class heavy cruiser, which was subsequently added to the Bismarck's task force. Late in the evening of the 18th of May, the Prinz Eugen departed Gotenhaven, followed by the Bismarck, heading to the Norwegian Sea. Raeder appointed trustworthy Admiral Gunther Leach to take command of Operation Rheinübung. In the evening of the 23rd of May, the Prinz Eugen, followed by the Bismarck, steamed through the Denmark Strait, hoping that worsening weather would help the German ships to break out into the Atlantic unseen, to hunt down Allied merchant convoys crossing the Atlantic. Great Britain, though a global power, being an island nation, was heavily dependent on imported goods and raw materials. Thousands of commerce vessels crossed the Atlantic every month, helping to keep the British economy running. Leach's operation didn't remain unnoticed for too long. While passing along Greenland's coast, the German battle group was sighted by HMS Suffolk, a British heavy cruiser equipped with a new type of radar that was tracking them. 6 hours later, at dawn, the Prinz Eugen detected 2 ships on her port side. Leach expected another 2 British cruisers, but as these warships got closer, he realized from the size of their superstructures that heavier units were about to challenge him. Vice Admiral Lancelot Holland was approaching the German battle group with a force consisting of 2 capital ships in the lead. The mighty battlecruiser HMS Hood, the pride of the Royal Navy, and a brand new battleship, the HMS Prince of Wales. The reason behind Holland's aggressive course lay in the characteristics of the Hood's armor. Though her main belt armor was thick, the deck received relatively little protection, leaving the ship vulnerable in long-distance exchanges, where the plunging fire could easily penetrate the armor of her deck. Being over 12 miles away, the British ships opened fire with their forward turrets. While the Prince of Wales correctly tracked the more dangerous threat of the Bismarck, the Hood mistakenly aimed at the Prinz Eugen, which was leading the line and had quite a similar silhouette to the Bismarck's. British initial salvos missed, and soon the Prince of Wales had to fight with malfunctioning armaments, a somewhat expected teething pain. In the meantime, the Hood's next salvos were much closer, throwing splinters across the Prinz Eugen's boards. But the German guns remained silent. Leach was reluctant to return fire, even though it seemed that engagement was unavoidable. He still had Raeder's orders in mind, which urged him to avoid encounters with equal British units at all costs, as his primary mission was commerce raiding. But it seemed that there was no way out. His artillery officers made a number of requests to open fire, but Leach first took the time to ensure that both of his ship's armaments were aiming at the Hood, and then waited until the optimal moment to strike. Eventually, the Bismarck's guns roared in a full broadside fire, followed by the Prinz Eugen's salvo shortly thereafter. the initial fire yielded immediate results, as the Prinz Eugen scored a direct hit on the hood, with a high explosive shell causing a substantial fire on board. At this point, the British shells of the Prince of Wales finally reached the Bismarck, penetrating her bow and causing a fuel leak. The Germans still held the advantage, firing full broadside while the Prince of Wales used just half of her guns, and the hood still mistakenly concentrating her fire on the Prinz Eugen. Vice Admiral Holland ordered both of his ships to turn to port so all British guns could shoot at the Germans, thus equalizing the encounter. But virtually a minute later, the unexpected happened. From a distance just short of 9 miles, the Bismarck's fifth salvo reached its target, and one or more shells penetrated the hood's deck, seemingly without effect. British gunnery officers believed it was a gun, but seconds later, an enormous magazine explosion tore the mighty hood in two. The explosive effect of the Bismarck's momentous direct hit left German sailors staring in awe, but Admiral Leach remained calm and unmoved. Within the next 3 minutes, the blazing pride of the Royal Navy, and for a long time the biggest warship of the world, disappeared from the ocean's surface. She sunk with her entire 1,400 men crew. Just 3 seamen survived. But the battle didn't end. The Prince of Wales adjusted her course to avoid the sinking wreck of the hood, and soon suffered concentrated fire from both of the German units, which were both well positioned to switch targets. The distance between all opponents decreased, allowing even the Prinz Eugen to fire its secondary armaments and prepare torpedo tubes. Both of Leach's warships scored hits on the remaining British unit, causing medium damage. The Prince of Wales, clearly at a huge disadvantage, launched a smokescreen and began to retreat. A few more salvos were fired by both sides as the distance between the enemies increased, but none reached their targets. The short, yet shattering battle of the Denmark Strait thus came to an end. While the Prinz Eugen was essentially intact, not having been hit in the battle, the Bismarck was damaged. Her speed was slightly reduced due to the flooding of one of her boiler rooms, and suffered a slight list to the bow and port side. What was more worrying was that one of the British shells had ruptured her bow, causing flooding of one of her forecastle tanks, and causing her to slowly leak precious fuel. Leach was considering his options. He was aware that the British would seek revenge for the loss of their symbolic battlecruiser, but he didn't know that the Royal Navy had employed the majority of its available warships to seek and destroy the German task force. The hunt for the Bismarck was about to begin.